You know your
you
way
guys
around.
are rocking the Electro Voice mics. This is the RE20. This is Tom York's vocal mic of choice.
Is it really?
It is. And it's also
that's good.
very, very commonly used on kick drums and bass guitar.
So we passed the test?
You passed. This is serious equipment here.
Shit. You know who I was talking to? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
You know who I was talking to? Who was it? Jason Keelar. He's the he's the CEO of Warner Bros.
Wow.
And he was like, he doesn't really do podcasts. Like he's a traditional media guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like his interviews are on, Kramer, right? and so he was like, what kind of gear do you use? What kind of cameras are you using? And I was like, I have no idea.
Right.
Like I don't know, so anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's so I was just talking to somebody about this recently. What's so amazing is like quote unquote consumer gear today. It's there's no difference between consumer gear and pro gear, really. I mean, there is in cost, and if you have like a super technical person, they could like point out some specs, but like 99.9% of people, you give them a consumer mic or consumer camera, whatever. Like we can shoot stuff on our iPhones now, and it rivals what you see in movie theaters.
It's good, right?
Oh, it's amazing. It's not good. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and I still have to remind myself of this. Like my iPhone, like my camera on the thing that I carry around with me all the time is a higher resolution camera than the cameras used to film some of my favorite movies from the 80s and 90s and even like early 2000s. Like this is a higher resolution camera than I have with like better color replication.
And it's not that expensive. I mean, it's similar to like TVs, right? You're just getting nicer and nicer TVs. They get bigger and bigger, and the cost is just plummeting.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think this is why this is like one of the reasons that like I love what I'm doing is because like for the first time in human history, the barriers to entry for like mass communication and telling stories and expressing your voice artistically through video, through audio, those barriers are gone. Like a 12-year-old kid can make an album in their bedroom that sounds better than major label records. Like that, it's just like common now. Like we just accept that now. But that's an incredible thing. Like it used to cost $250,000 to make a record. Like engineers in Abbey Road Studios where the Beatles, recorded albums, like they used to wear white lab coats and they had to know like about ohms and resistance and shit to like make a record. Like that was only 50 years ago.
Right.
That's fucking insane.
Right. In many ways, doesn't this conversation around the cost of audio equipment plummeting kind of mirror the entire thesis of the company, like of your company, meaning audio costs are dropping, barrier of entry is lower because it costs $100 to get a mic that sounds pretty good at home, even if you could just use your iPhone if you wanted.
A lot of people do now.
Distribution is basically free. You go on YouTube, you put it online, put it on Spotify, right? I mean, in many ways, like isn't this exactly why Patreon exists?
You just mentioned like literally two of the three really long trends that are the reason Patreon can exist.
What's the third?
The third is emerging economic models around
people want to make money from it
around those first two behaviors. Exactly. And so the first trend is like the cost of creation tools is going to zero. Like anybody can make anything with basically consumer stuff, like with the stuff you already have. You can make stuff that rivals our favorite works of art that we had growing up. You can make that now. That's like trend number one. And by the way, like that's not like a new trend. That's not like a last 20 years trend.
Right.
That's like multi-100-year trend. Like starting with the Industrial Revolution, people figuring out how to mass manufacture pianos, right? The cost of pianos plummets. Then you get pianos in millions of living rooms. You get like explosions in like, genres like ragtime, blues, jazz, like folk music. Like that's because like starting with the Industrial Revolution, it became easier to manufacture things that were essentially art creation tools. That trend has been happening now for hundreds of years. The most recent version of that, right? The most recent iteration of that trend is AI generation tools, right? Like now you don't even, you may not necessarily need the technical skill to even play guitar. You don't even need fingers, right? You can like speak what kind of guitar music you want to hear into a model and like create guitar. Like, we can get into the ethics of that and the sort of payment for artists around that later. But like that's trend number one, is right? Like anybody, like creation tools are more accessible and affordable than ever. Trend number two is connectedness, right? It's like Well, and that's also multi-hundreds of years, right? Like humans are getting more and more connected. And if you combine those two trends, really what you get is people who are making stuff and then reaching others with the stuff that they make. And we call those people creators. And there's now like hundreds of millions of them, around the world. And what's emerged over the last, really 100 or so years since humans figured out how to document their art and put it on a physical object, right? With like CDs and videos and VHS tapes and blah, blah, blah. There's like a lot of interest in like economic models around selling your art, distributing your art. And so that's kind of the third trend that I think has really gained a lot of steam in the last 20 years, especially as things digitized and moved onto the internet. And then, voila, you get like people who are making stuff, reaching others with the stuff they make and building businesses around it. That's what Patreon is.
But wasn't there a pre-existing model for, call it creators? I mean, creators is maybe the digital version of someone that starts something from scratch.
Yeah.
But like, wasn't there a pre-existing model of people getting paid for their art well before the last 100 years?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and most of that actually was patronage, right? Like most of that was a wealthy person, would give somebody a bag of coins and be like, I like what you do, go do more of it. And that's how like almost all the great art that we know, that we studied, that we've seen in history books, like it was made because our rich dude gave someone a bag of coins and was like, go do that again. That was kind of the main economic model behind a lot of the art that has, quote unquote, lasted. There's a lot of great like folk music and stuff, but a lot of the art was sort of financed by governments and religious leaders and stuff like that, religious institutions. But yeah, then like around 1900, literally like the thing that happened that changed the economics of art and changed the shift from, away from patronage, which was, by the way, in place for like thousands of years, right? Like patronage was how it was done for thousands of years. Then 1900 rolled around. It's like suddenly we were like, oh my God, you can record sound onto a wax cylinder, right? Onto like, you can record like light onto photographic paper, onto celluloid paper. And then it was like this whole industry, the next 100 years were basically around the recording of art onto physical objects, whether it was a CD or a vinyl disc or a laser disc or a DVD or a Blu-ray, putting art on physical objects. And then lots of industry around distributing those physical objects around the world to consumers and consumers paying for them. And then unit sales essentially replaced patronage as the primary, economic model for artistry, at least for certain types and categories of artistry. And that was like an okay model for artists, and in certain phases of that 100 years, it like worked really well. But actually a lot of the consumer payment ended up going to people who weren't the artists, and artists kind of got fucked in that period, right? Like a lot of the people who, the check got cut in half 20 times before it got back to the artist. And so the artist might have sold the record for, $15 and got paid less than $1 for that record, or nothing in many cases, right? If they didn't recoup the advance to create the record in the first place because it was so expensive. So yes, the model has shifted like a lot. But really, I mean, the way I think about it is like it went from patronage to unit sales. And then when we digitized art, 20 years ago or so, and the internet came up, then you lose scarcity, you have infinite replicability. And so the idea of like unit sales doesn't really make sense anymore as the primary driver or economic model for arts. And then that's why sort of music collapsed, and like we're trying to, humanity's trying to like figure that out again now. It's like, oh shit, how do we pay artists?
Right. Like in some ways, don't you think that Spotify and YouTube opened the aperture for anybody to be called an artist as long as you put something up and then they listen to it, which is part of the reason why the per unit model broke down once you're not using a record label as the arbiter to getting to a bunch of people, as the distribution point. However, now if anyone's an artist, in air quotes, like the way you can really prove it is, do people want to pay for it, right? And so like in some ways, like now you're like, okay, you go through the record labels, then you go through Spotify and YouTube, and now like this emerging wave is happening, which is there's this huge broad base of people that want to get their stuff out into the world and maybe make a few bucks doing that. Like that's kind of like what you're trying to reconcile with Patreon, is it not?
I mean, so I don't think of it as make a few bucks. And the reason I don't think of it that way is because really the mission of the company is around helping people build businesses and changing the culture around artistry. Like one of the things that like I just really don't like is this concept of the starving artist. I think it's a load of crap, and I don't want to live on a planet where that is like a meme that people talk about and think about. Artists create a fuckload of value for the world, and they should be compensated for the value that they create. They build value for society, and people don't, for whatever reason, and that's changing. Like culture is changing. Like it is becoming like very commonplace to be like a podcaster or a video creator, and that's sort of being accepted now. But when the company started 10 years ago, I remember going to a cocktail party and telling somebody like, "Oh yeah, I'm a YouTuber," and that year, like through my own businesses and brand deals and like selling my music online and iTunes sales, like. My band Pomplamoose that year made $400,000 as an independent artist, unsigned, no production studio, no management company, like nothing. We bought a house and built a recording studio on MP3 sales. And I remember going to a cocktail party and somebody was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "I'm a musician." And they like put their hand on my shoulder and like very earnestly, they were like, "I hope you make it someday." And I was like, "Fuck you." Like I didn't say that, but like in my mind, I was like, I'm living the life that I want to live. Like I bought a house. I'm making music every day. I've got a community of millions of people that I'm reaching online with my work. And like what I want to do with Patreon is I want to make that normal, and it is becoming normal. But yeah, like I want artists to be recognized for the value that they are actually creating in the world, which is an insane amount of value. And for too long, my opinion is like tech companies have been getting away with basically undercompensating artists. And I don't think, that's not where we should be. That's not where humans should be 20 years into the internet. It's not right.
Is Patreon an homage to the word patron? Is that like...
Originally it was.
Okay.
Just like straight up, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's way stupider than that. Like the story is so dumb.
Give it to me.
Oh God. The name Patreon came from a 30-minute brainstorm in a Google Doc where I wrote out about 8 to 10 names for ideas for the company. And then I actually checked my stats, or I checked the Google Doc maybe a few years ago, and I realized the timestamp on my Google Doc was approximately like 32 minutes before my GoDaddy receipt. So I literally put 30 minutes into the brainstorm for the name before actually buying the website patreon.com, and then that became Patreon. But it was a mix of the word patron and patronage, because that was the idea that that's how this is a old economic model, and then the word Metreon, which was a Smithsonian museum in San Francisco, a shopping mall.
Where the movie theater is.
And I just thought it sounded like a cool name. I was like, Metreon, that's cool. It was so dumb, and so I was like, okay, Patreon, and then that was that. That's like kind of how we chose the name Pomplamoose for our band. It's like, I don't know.
The LaCroix flavor?
Well, we bastardized the spelling, and it was before the LaCroix flavor came out.
Okay.
But yeah, honestly, that's how like YouTubers work too. Like I follow so many accounts, so many YouTube channels where like the channel is like named like one of my favorite YouTubers was J followed by 6 A's. Her name was Julia Nunes, but when she was creating an account, she was like Ja, and that was it. That was her YouTube account, and then she got like huge on YouTube. And I think there's something to like that fast start that a lot of artists kind of have. It's like this impulsive sort of thing. And honestly, that's the mode I was in when Patreon was getting started. I wasn't thinking like, what's the business strategy? Like, what's the market? Like,
right.
Where is this going to go over 10 years? It was just like, oh, buy patreon.com, go.
Do you, companies like a couple hundred people now? Right? How many?
Yeah, a little over 400 people.
400 people, like raised like $400+ million last round, $4 billion.
Yeah.
This is a pretty serious company. Like there's a lot of people counting on you, not just employees, but the people that are using the platform today.
Yeah.
But when I watch your interviews and when I sit across the table from you, like the real joy in you comes from the artist. Like the real joy in my mind comes from posting YouTube videos,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't know, like, how do you even reconcile those two worlds of like, because those are such extremes,
Yeah.
right? Like where in another world, it's like the, well, I don't know, maybe it's similar, like the engineer, coder turned, you know, CEO that then no longer gets to code anymore.
Yeah.
You're still putting out, what, 1 to 2 videos a week?
Yeah, a lot of videos.
With like, with more than one band?
Yeah, and music and yeah.
Do you do that? Why do you still do that? Like, do you do that to, is that how you balance both worlds together?
Yeah. By the way, this question is kind of like the question for the last like 10 years of my life. When I figure out the answer, I'll let you know. But like right now, it just is pain, right? It's just pain.
What do you mean?
I don't know the answer to that question. And that is what I'm trying to figure out. And it's hard. And so it's a constant balance and rebalance. And I see a therapist. So this is like what I'm talking to my therapist about, right?
And do you
like
not know the answer because your heart is pulling you towards creating? However, you also bear the weight of a responsibility of a company that you didn't expect to happen. And it's not what gives you actually the purest form of joy.
Yeah, this was never my goal. This is not like I was not trying to do this.
Right.
I never thought I was going to be a CEO. I don't identify as an entrepreneur. I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur. I don't even like doing podcasts like this, to be honest, because I don't speak to tech people. I don't speak tech. I'm not a tech person. I speak to artists. I speak to creators. And when I say things online, those people congregate around my work, not tech people.
Totally.
So like this is a Kleiner podcast. And the audience is tech people and founders. And like, I know there's a piece of me that's like, well, I'm not going to resonate with them, but fuck it.
Yeah.
And so that part of me, that feels like this is not my thing. That's one story that I have in my brain. And that's one way to think about like my place in this. And there's another way to think about it, which is like, that's why Patreon works. Like the number of people who have tried to build Patreon, including from like the most performant high execution product shops in the world, who have like copied Patreon, like feature by feature. And then it hasn't worked. And they've tried to figure out why. I do think there's something about the fact that like I'm not speaking tech that makes Patreon work. Like artists have blood in their mouths from being kicked in the face by every institution and corporation and management company that they have ever trusted for the last 100+ years. They have a history of just getting screwed. And it kind of takes, I don't want to like butter myself up too much here because that's the other thing. But like, unless you are an artist, it's hard to understand what that feels like as an artist. It's hard to understand how to talk to artists, how to communicate with artists, how to build for artists. Even if you are an artist, it's still hard to do that. I still struggle with that. And so there's a piece of me that feels like I'm the only person that should be doing this company. And so I oscillate between those two sides, between those two stories. One of them is like, well, I'm not a tech person. And the other is like, that's why I should be doing this. Yeah. And it does feel like a lot of responsibility. And I don't take that lightly. And I have to remind myself to let there be like lightness and joy to the whole thing because it does weigh on me. Yeah.
I think that's really well said. And I appreciate you saying it. I had the Blue Bottle coffee founder here like maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. And, you know, he's like like if there was such thing as an artist for coffee, that's what he is. Like he loves coffee. And he actually was in I think the San Francisco Symphony, played clarinet, like struggled. Yeah. And in his mid 40s, he went to the farmer's market, started like a little coffee truck thing. And then that turned into Blue Bottle. And he described the similar weight that you're describing of these two worlds. But I think the thing that what he said was, look, the type of beans that we get, the aesthetic of the coffee shop when you walk in, the color of the paint, the tiles, like these are details that he obsesses over, obsesses. And so, you know, I think why have a lot of other Patreon copycats not worked, or why have a lot of Blue Bottle copycats not worked, is because they're not obsessed with every single detail that creates the experience that you feel. And that experience is basically the soul of your product that users then identify with, or whether it's people drinking a coffee or artists coming onto the platform. And I think like in many ways, you can't just manufacture that soul. It comes through like thousands of details that come from a very personal experience that you then have to like imbue into the world, that you've just happened to manifest through, in this case, a company. I don't know how you can recreate that.
I mean, well said. And I agree with that. It's the sort of the millions of little pieces of nuance that show up everywhere that give people signals around who this company is and what we're trying to do and what we care about, right? Maybe a good analogy is like, you know, your face. When you look at a person's face, there's like 40 muscles in your face that are like twitching and moving, and like when you say something, like this muscle pulls and that. And like humans, we see another person's face and we just react to it, right? Because we intuit what all those little muscle twitches mean. And then it gives us like a feeling. Companies are the same. There's like every little motion. There's like 1,000 little muscles contracting underneath. And when you look at the company from the outside, a person can intuit, like, what does this company stand for? Or like, what are they trying to do in the world? And people read that. Like, people are really smart. They see things. Like, they see who you are. So it's like, how do you, like, it's hard to manufacture a bunch of those little mini face movements. I guess now people are manufacturing those,
definitely,
which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, I do think about it like that. And in fact, I would say when I think about my time at Patreon, you know, it's been 11 years now. You know, I have been in and out of letting myself behave as you described. I think one of my biggest mistakes, and maybe it wasn't a mistake at the time because I didn't know anything about operating companies, but not letting myself be detail obsessed, I think was very hard and pushed the company in the wrong direction for a number of years. Like, you know, I made the mistake, I think, that probably some founders make, although I'm seeing less and less now because of the sort of discourse and community around what it means to be a founder. But in my early days, I would defer too much and not be opinionated enough and want too much to learn from others. And there's the whole adage around, like, you know, adages around like surrounding yourself with great people and like hiring amazing talent and let them work. And like one of my favorite, you know, directors, controversial as he is, Woody Allen, you know, somebody asked him how he directed once and he was like, oh, I don't direct. I just hire A+ actors and I let them do their thing. And then, you know, you just read Medium article after Medium article around, you know, servant leadership and like, and I really rotated in that early direction, I think, because I didn't mean to start a company. Right. And I wasn't like, we weren't a YC company and I wasn't coming from a product and like, that wasn't my thing. I didn't know how any of that worked. And so I think in the early days, I really deferred. And one of the things that I'm, you know, changing a lot and actively working on now is like embracing my obsession a bit more, because I have those impulses and I think the company is better when they manifest.
Can you give me an example of an obsession that you feel now maybe that you would take liberty to go all the way to the mat on, whereas before maybe you'd, in air quotes, defer to the experts?
Yeah. Apple just rolled out a 30% fee for all creators on Patreon by essentially, telling Patreon we had to integrate with IAP, or we would risk not being in the App Store. That communication to our creators and how we explain that and talk about that is brutally difficult. And I've been going to meetings, for the last few months, looking at the comms for that and debating copy down to the word on how we explain this. And the tendency, I think, as companies grow, at least that I've seen, is to withhold information, to not share more, to make the copy more vague. And I just keep finding myself pressing to explain more, put it all on the table, hide nothing, build a model, show the math in our FAQ, show the math for how the fee adds up. Here's the tool that we're building to offset that fee. Here's how much you take. Here's how much Patreon takes. Here's our revenue from that. This is revenue neutral for us. And here's the math. And you can see how that works. Get that out all on the table. Be overly, and it takes the natural tendency is risk aversion inside a company, especially as it scales. And so it takes a lot of push to get full honesty, full transparency, full communication on the table. And I ended up making, a 15-minute video where I'm just literally talking through the change. And I wrote the script myself where I'm talking through the change with creators. I probably would not have done that years ago. I would have been okay, I guess we shouldn't be that transparent, And I've seen how that affects the company and trust with creators over time. And I know it's not the right thing now. We have to just lay it out all on the table 100%.
That's an excellent example. Excellent example. Your YouTube video was called Nothing Works.
Yeah.
It really moved me.
Thanks.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
And in many ways, the point of the talk is the point of this podcast, which is there is an easy way for you to sit here right now and build this reconstructed narrative of the arc of your life and career. That was this happened, pretty positive. The ball bounced my way. Pomplamoose, amazing ride. Met my now wife. Then Patreon turned in from that. You could really easily just pull this thread of success, and you don't do that. And I think the point of the show is to really highlight how much things suck along the way.
Right.
Because I don't know, I think when you were going through those struggles of really trying to make it. And by the way, I'm making that a past tense thing, as if you're not going through your own sets of struggles today, right now with the company.
Yeah.
It's not very relatable for you if you just hear about all of these other people that you look up to who just got lucky.
And it's not true.
It's not true at all.
Right.
It's not true at all.
That was the point of that talk, was I was sick of going to conferences and conventions and watching videos where people are essentially embodying the Yoda sage. If there's one lesson over the last 10 years for me, and maybe this is just because Patreon's a unique beast, but in some ways I think every company is a unique beast, right? But there were times where execs would do an interview and they would have so much confidence in the interview process. And they would talk about, okay, I see this, I see that. Okay, this is a marketplace, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll run this playbook and then, blah, blah, blah. And that exec would come in and just struggle to figure it out. And it's so hard to deeply internalize this, and everybody talks about it. It sounds like such a trite fucking thing to say, but there are no experts on this stuff. There is no playbook. There is no person who knows how to do it. They're not on your board. They're not a mentor. They're not a coach. There's not some exec who's seen it before. at least not for Patreon. Maybe it's that way for other companies, but like nobody has an answer. It's not about finding an answer. It's about figuring out what is right for you. And, or at least that's what it's been for me. I hate even saying the word you. This is what it has been for me. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the deepest, hardest to internalize lessons that I have learned painfully over and over again for 11 years. And so that talk was very much about like, it's got to come from inside. I can't, and I have not succeeded in finding the person who knows the way. Like I have to figure that out for myself. Hard lesson, so trite, but like, God, I just turned 40 and, it like that feels like one of those things I've known for 20 years that I'm still learning.
Can you tell the story about when you played the set at the bar or like the mini club type thing, and there was supposed to be a headline act that didn't show up?
Right.
Can you tell that story?
I mean, so early on when I was like trying to figure out how to like be a musician, because I quit physics in college to be a music major, and then I graduated with a music major and was like, okay, I got to figure out how to do this. And I was DMing bands on MySpace and asking if I could open for them. And I got in my car, which was a Prius, with my buddy, and we drove up and down the West Coast opening for bands that we DM'd on MySpace. And for one of the shows, the band didn't show up. They just weren't there. And so none of their fans came. And then my buddy got carded on the way in, and he was 18 or 19, so they didn't let him into the bar, so he couldn't play. So I was the only person there, and I was in this bar on stage, and there was literally nobody in the venue. It was a 500-person venue. Nobody was there. There was a bartender, and about halfway through my set, the bartender left because no one was ordering drinks. So I was in a room, a 500-person room, by myself playing my set. That's a humbling feeling. It was, and I did that for 4 years. I did shows like that for 4 years. Got in my car, drove up and down the West Coast, and toured. And so you can imagine like how relieved I was when this new website came out called YouTube, and a friend sent me a video of a guy playing with an acoustic guitar in front of a webcam, and he had a like pretty good voice, but he wasn't like, he wasn't Paul McCartney, but he had a pretty good voice, playing guitar, pretty good guitarist. And he had 300,000 views on that video. And I was like, wow, that's so much better than no people.
Right.
Maybe I should try this new website called YouTube. Started uploading my videos to YouTube. And then, within a couple of years, I was like, I sort of got, selling MP3s, on a website that I had built for myself with help from a friend. And making like $500 a month in MP3 sales, and then started to realize like, okay, I can kind of do this. And then that's when Pomplamoose started. And then Pomplamoose started getting, tens of millions of views on YouTube, and then hundreds of millions of views and, plays on Spotify and stuff like that. And then, we started going on tour and playing big venues and stuff. But like for a very long time, I was playing empty rooms in dive bars up and down the West Coast, trying to figure out how to be a musician. And it was brutal. Those are really hard times.
Define hard.
Hard like hard in the way everybody experiences hard. I don't want to get out of bed. This isn't worth it. This isn't going to work. I don't even know if I want to. I'm not saying I'm going to kill myself, but like, I don't have a lot of will right now.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people struggle with that, especially artists. It's a feeling of like worthlessness. And then it compounds when you check your YouTube dashboard and you reach 1 million people, and you feel really good about that. Like, oh my God, I just reached 1 million people with this new video. It's like 10,000 comments. Like
when Pomplamoose started taking off.
Yeah. Even my own videos. Like I was uploading videos that were getting millions of views.
Yeah.
And And then you check your ad revenue and you make $48 in ad revenue. And you're like, oh my God, I'm worthless. I am worth $48 a month. And that is like, you check that dashboard every day, looking at that dashboard in the morning. And eventually you start to believe that you're worth $48 a month. And that's a bad fucking feeling. That's a bad feeling.
When you feel now torn between these worlds of Patreon and CEO of Patreon and artist, do you ever check back into that feeling of these days that we're describing as a reminder of why you're doing this?
I don't have to, because that I mean, first of all, of course,
yeah,
like that comes up all the time. But a lot of people think that like when you have some kind of success, that it is that thereafter. And that has not been my experience.
And that somehow it wipes out the scar tissue from before.
Maybe it's like that for other people. For me, success feels the same as failure when you're going through it. It is the same, all of the same feelings. And in fact, it has led me to like one of my deeper beliefs, which I think is a very important belief, which is like happiness is not situational. It is brain chemistry. Like the feelings that I am having now, I have all these stories that they are because of things that are happening around me. And that's not true. The feelings I'm having are in me. They are my feelings. They are not because I just played an empty room or because I played a full room or because, you know, multiples were 30x 2 years ago and they're 6x now. Like, that's not why I feel those things. I feel those things because those are feelings that I feel, and those are in me and independent of the world around me. And so the reason happiness or the reason success and failure feels the same for me is because those feelings are just my brain chemistry. They're just things that I experience as a human being with a body in the world. And building something, whether you're building a band or building a company, there's always empty bars, always. And so I often have those feelings today. In other words, I don't have to check back 15 years ago, 20 years ago and remember what it felt like. Patreon does things that are empty bars all the time. We roll something out. We make a product change. We have some go-to-market. We have some marketing thing. And it's the equivalent of an empty bar, playing an empty bar. It's all those feelings again. Thank you very much. So like, anyway, all that to say, like, it's not like, okay, success, and then a feeling of success forever and ever, amen. It goes away in a few weeks, and then you're like back in empty bar land. For me, maybe it's not like that for other people, but every day I'm fighting for things to work again. So
when you were playing the empty bars though, or when you were grinding in a different way than you are now, would you think about being in this moment now or being Pomplamoose playing huge shows and think, when I get there, when I do this, then finally I'll be out of this?
That's the trap. And I've stopped believing that. Maybe I did believe that a long time ago, but I don't believe that now. And I'm not saying I don't believe that, and I actually do. I actually don't believe that now. I don't think there's a I'll be happy when. It's just not a truth. It's not how humans work. And it's the same with YouTubers and people in finance and you name it. Like, a lot of humans are very outcome driven and goal oriented. Some people are not, but even the ones that are, there's a tendency to think at outcome X, I'll feel feeling Y. And maybe that's true, but for a bit. But like, the beauty of humans is that we are baseline resets, right? Like, you can literally have something tragic happen in your life. You can lose a close friend. You can, I mean, there are actually even studies like this has been studied. There's studies of like amputees. You can lose a limb. And there's this like period of grief. And then there's a flattening out where you go back to baseline eventually. And there are these longitudinal studies where people like report happiness levels that are essentially at a baseline, you know, similar to like before this tragic event. And the same is true with good things. You can have an amazing thing happen. You make a bunch of money, or you know, achieve your goal, or you play the Fillmore, or whatever. And then that lasts for a little bit. There's a period of happiness, and then you come back to the baseline. That's not a curse. That's a blessing. Like, that's really great that humans operate like that. It puts us on the hedonic treadmill, right? Because we're always chasing the next thing. But for me, what I have internalized is like, that is not the purpose. The purpose can't be achieving that thing, because there is not a lasting feeling on the other side of that thing.
Was there a moment in time that forced you to internalize this, or did this just happen gradually?
I think it's just like, it's gradual.
Like you started to kind of actually achieve a lot of the things that you dreamed about, and then maybe there was a feeling that wasn't the feeling that you expected?
Yes, exactly. Good and bad, right? Like, and yeah, I can point to all those things. My mom died when I was 26. She had, you know, cancer for 2.5 years. And it was the worst. I mean, you know, people who've had loved ones who've had cancer, you know, it's the worst. It's the worst thing. And I love my mom dearly. And a couple years later, I was okay. I wasn't ruined as a person. I lost my mom when I was 26, and my life kept going. You know, Pomplamoose, we achieved our wildest dreams. You know, we've played massive venues, and, you know, sold so many records and, you know, get 80 million streams a year on Spotify, and, you know, same on YouTube. And am I like, I did it? Am I like resting on a beach with a margarita feeling a feeling of success? No, because that's not how bodies work. You reset, and then you're like back to wherever you are. And now, fortunately, I think for me, like, my general state is like general enthusiasm and excitement to like go do things most of the time. I'm saying I don't ever get sad. I do. But like general enthusiasm and excitement is kind of how I usually feel. Whether or not I've achieved something awesome or not, or whether or not something tragic has happened or not. So yeah, I now just, and so many things like that have happened where Pomplamoose has figured it out, or something bad has happened. I think that's just, yeah, you're at where you're at. And the work that you can do to change that is more internal than it is external. So
do you not believe anymore that external influences can influence your internal state?
They do for a little, and they do for me too for a little, and then they don't. And I'm not just saying that. Like, that is true. It's also not just like an opinion that I have. Like, this is studied. This is researched. Yeah. Like that's why I think it's so dangerous. Actually, Matthew Inman, the Oatmeal. Matthew Inman, is that his name? Matthew, I don't know. We just call him the Oatmeal. Do you know the Oatmeal?
No.
He's a webcomic, brilliant webcomic. He did Exploding Kittens. You know Exploding Kittens? Yeah. It's amazing mind, amazing thinker. And yeah, he's got a wonderful long comic on happiness. And he doesn't even like to think of the word happiness. He doesn't use the word happiness. And I've stopped thinking about it like that too, especially after reading this comic. I don't like thinking of it like that. Like, he was saying, he in his comic, he tells the story of this person who really loves the work that they do, and they're engaged by that work, and they suffer for that work, and they have, you know, it's blood, sweat, and tears, and they're up and down, but there's in it, and they're in flow, and then they're not in flow, and then they are again. And like, and then somebody asks that person, like, are you happy? And they're like, well, I never thought about that, but I'm really engaged and I like what I'm doing and I'm obsessed with it. And I'm like crafting these details that I really care about. And it's really interesting to me. And like, but am I happy? Well, I don't know. And like, I kind of feel that way too. Like, I don't know that happiness is what I'm trying to do either. Like, I don't know that that's, or rather I know that that is not what I'm trying to get. I'm not sure that that's achievable either. It's not like a state that I can get to. So yeah, I'd rather just really like what I'm doing.
You know what I have a hard time with, Jack, is that there's all this conventional wisdom around what you're saying in enjoying the process, right? The happiness does not come from the outcome, it comes from the process, right? But like, I don't enjoy the process.
Yeah.
like I work out every day. Most of the time, I'm not like, wow, I'm stoked I'm working out right now.
Yeah.
You know, like in hindsight, I do love to work, but most of the time my work is work. Like I'm definitely like anxious about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm stressed about it.
Yeah.
And it comes from a feeling of wanting to do good work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I don't then enjoy it. Now, if you told me, if you took work away from me, I'd be devastated. You know what I mean? So I don't know, like, but that doesn't mean that every day I'm like, yes, this email that I'm sending right now, this prep that I'm doing right now is exactly what I want to be doing. Like, I just don't know how to, I don't know how that works.
It's not for me either. A lot of my hours, our head of finance calls this the difference between type 1 joy and type 2 joy. Type 1 joy for me is like crowd surfing. It's just fucking so fun. Oh my God. Like I love it. Whenever I go on tour, I crowd surf.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Every show. I can't help.
You jump into the crowd.
I jump into the crowd and I surf on the crowd because it's amazing. It feels great. But if I crowd surfed every day and that was all that I was doing, I would feel so empty. And so the struggle that I have is not that I don't like my hours, because a lot of my hours I don't like, straight up. And I know there's like a lot of CEOs talk about like, oh, you got to like find the thing that you like to do and like, you
outsource all the other stuff.
Okay, great. Maybe that worked for them. I do a lot of shit that I don't want to do and that I don't like doing. A lot of my hours are spent doing that. Maybe I just haven't figured it out yet. I'll let all the CEOs on podcasts tell me that I haven't figured it out yet. It's fine. But I do a lot of shit that I don't like and I don't want to do, straight up. But those behaviors get an outcome that is motivating and inspiring to me. It is a change that I want to drive in culture on planet Earth. And that change is important to me. And I want to see that in my life. I want to see that happen. And it requires me to do things that I don't want to do. It requires me to take actions, do behaviors where I'm like, this isn't interesting to me. I'm not engaged right now. It's not fun. But I want to make something happen. And that's the sort of teleological part of humanity that is like closing the gap between a current state and a goal state that is like undoubtedly a part of many of us. And I have whatever that is. I have that desire to make something happen that has not happened yet. There's a difference between doing those things and doing things that are type 1 joy, crowd surfing, that are just pure fun. And my struggle for me is sometimes, in fact, a lot of the time, the type 1 joy behaviors don't create the outcomes that I want to see in the world. And the outcomes that I want to see in the world are not achieved with type 1 behaviors, both. So my struggle as a human is reconciling those two things. And there's a lot of frameworks for this. People talk about, and actually, I heard actually on one of your shows, somebody was talking about Ikigai, this sort of Japanese framework, these 4 circles. Yeah. Like find the intersection of like what you love, what you get paid for, you know, what you're good at, what the world needs. Like I've heard all those frameworks. I get all that. Like sometimes there's not a fucking intersection. Sometimes they're different things. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that being tension. Like, I'm anxious too when I work. Like, I spend a lot of my time feeling anxious about things. But I think it's kind of a fallacy to like think I'm not going to be anxious in life, or like I have to do something where I don't have anxiety. Like, is that what I want to base my life around? I don't.
But do you think, this is a question that I ask myself all the time, Jack, which is, if I removed this idealized end state or achievement or outcome that I want to go get towards,
right,
then would the type 2 work turn into type 1 work?
Sometimes.
If I could remove the hedonic treadmill from my current state to my future state, then wouldn't it allow me to be more present? Like, isn't my anxiety caused by the idea of me wanting to do great work so that I can go produce an amazing outcome?
But why? So yes. And there's a whole school of thought, right? Religions around like, well, remove desire.
Right.
Remove want. I don't want to remove want. I like want. These are things that I want, and I want to be honest with myself. And like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with wanting to make that change in the world. If you were to ask me, do I want to take that away so I can feel less anxiety? I would say no. I accept the anxiety as
That's the trade-off. That's the trade-off you're willing to make.
Yeah. But that is right. That is like, what are your values? It's not like what you care about. It's what you're willing to sacrifice for those things. Those are your values.
And do you feel like the thing that you're struggling with, going back to the early part of our conversation that you like talk to your therapist about, like you said, is this idea that most of the work that you do now feels like work to you as compared to going and playing music. However, you know that you have to do this in order to achieve something that's bigger than you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it does feel like work. Now, that's not to say I don't like a lot of it. I do.
Sure.
A lot of it's really fun and interesting. Yeah. But I'm not trying to make it all fun and interesting. It's not going to be. And I'm okay with that.
When did you, how long did it take you to think that, you know what, I am the right CEO for this company?
I'm not sure. So I go back and forth on that.
Still.
Yeah. And there are some days where I still feel like I'm looking at the you're worth $48 YouTube dashboard of my AdSense for a monthly payment. And on those days, it's really hard. Now, I would say like the trend line, if you sort of smooth out the curve over the last 11 years, the trend line is me leaning into what I'm good at and what I love, and leaning into my obsessions, and generally feeling like, okay, I kind of have a good sense of this here. And so I think more and more I feel like I'm the right person for this. But I also don't want to pretend that like I did something and now I feel like I'm the right person. Like I feel like my sense is, if you were talking with entrepreneurs without microphones and people are just having conversations, or if you could listen in on a conversation that an entrepreneur is having with their therapist, their coach, you'd hear really, really different things. And that's okay. We don't have to broadcast like our most secret inner thoughts to the world. But I also think the net impact of not saying those things is that we end up feeling really lonely because we think we're the only person dealing with those feelings.
Yeah, this is why I think entrepreneurship both should and should never be celebrated. Like on the one hand, I think that it's one of the most heroic, like hard, painful things, and therefore it shouldn't be celebrated. On the other hand, because it's so gnarly, that anybody that does it just like immediately earns an immense amount of respect in my book. You know? And I don't know, I just don't think that from what I have observed, having never been a founder before, I don't think anybody is even close on the inside to the projected confidence that they have on the outside.
1,000%.
Even close.
No way. No way. I don't believe that for a second. And that has been like part of the sort of hard lessons over 10 years is like seeing somebody really confident and then it doesn't work or they are wrong.
Like when you bring someone into Patreon, you're saying, yeah.
Or anywhere in life,
right.
But even in Patreon,
right.
Yeah. Seeing somebody confident, just be very, very wrong. And then seeing them try to spin that somehow or explain it or, it's like, yeah, there's no way people are as confident as they sound. I don't believe that.
In your experience, if it's not experience, if it's not the, let's just say, person that has done a B2B, B2C marketplace, been at Airbnb or whatever, they have all the answers to the test.
Yep.
If it's not the experience,
what
have you found to be great for you at Patreon?
Yeah. It's changed in different moments of the company.
Right.
So there's, it's not some consistent thread that runs forever. But I can tell you some of the things that I look for now and that I'm looking for now. I want people who are annoyingly fucking detail obsessed. They're annoying. They ask for too much information. They ask for more data cuts. You give them more data cuts. They ask for a drill down on that data cut. You're like, Jesus, this is more work than I did to raise $100 million to hire this person. They want to see slices and slices and slices. They ask follow-up question after follow-up question after follow-up question. They challenge, they push, they prod. They don't accept truth because if they do that with me, that's what they're going to do with the team. And ultimately it's like it's a obsessive truth seeking. It is an obsession with understanding and learning and finding something real. That's one thing. Look for that type of detail obsession. We haven't always had that in our culture. And I am naturally that kind of person. When I was trying to work on personal growth and be a better CEO and like remove that from myself, which I did for many years, it sucked. It was like bad for our culture. Like we didn't have the right amount of detail manifesting in everything that we did. And things just felt like, things didn't feel as good. So detail obsession is number one. Number two, everybody talks about humility. But I'll give you like very specific examples of like things that are red flags to me in an interview process and things that I look for. I want to see somebody who can self-reflect and see how they contributed to a problem or something not working. And I want to hear them talk through their contribution to the problem. There's a lot of people who tell I was right stories in interviews. And the story usually goes, the team said this, but I knew it was actually that, but I let the team do it. And then the team failed. And then I came back and I explained why they were right. And like, this is a very common pattern in interviews. I fucking hate those stories. That for me, that's a red flag. That's like, this is a I was right person, not a I was wrong and here's what I learned person. And I want to find I was wrong and here's what I learned people. Not only because it demonstrates a lot of truth seeking, but because it demonstrates the egolessness required to solve a very unique, weird problem that is company building, which is different in every company. So there needs to be an ability to look inward and self-reflect and be wrong and say you were wrong and explain why and explain what you figured out and how you're going to do it differently next time. That's number 2. Really, really want to find that. Number 3, still figuring this third one out, getting better at it, but still a challenge. I need to find people that I am values aligned with. I have very specific values and things that I care about, and they're not for every person, and that's okay. It drives some execs nuts. And when I try to gloss over it, and when I try to average it out or make it more palatable to attract more people to the company, it bites us. And I think when I'm saying this, you might think it's in the opposite direction. Here's what I've learned about myself. I care more about compassion and kindness than a lot of people. And there are some people, some operators who are like, well, it's not kindness. You don't want to be kind. What you want to be, and I'm like, nope. Like I've learned, like if you don't want kindness, I don't want you at the company. Like there has to be some element of like, we're all humans. We're all people. Mm-hmm. Some of us have bad days sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like you have to be able, we have to be able to communicate with artists. Artists are there's a lot of artists who are resilient, but a lot of artists in their hearts are very frail, fragile people. And there needs to be some humanity and kindness inside the company. And that translates to the outside of the company too. And I really care about that. I care about it for the impact it creates, for the value it generates for Patreon. I also care about it for the way I want Patreon to run, just what I care about internally. So I need to suss that out in an interview process and be really, really deliberate about that. So those are some things that I look for. And those were not things that materialized day one. There are things that I learned the hard way, and I'm still kind of learning around the edges over long periods of time and falling on my face a lot and making a lot of mistakes. But now if you were to ask me okay, what are you looking for right now? Those are the things that I would tell you. And there's more, but those are just 3 examples of types of people, types of things, red flags, orange flags, that I really care about a lot.
And it's interesting hearing you talk about this because so much of this has probably been what you've always believed you should be looking for.
Yes.
However,
totally.
the outside world has told you all of the other things
100%.
that you should be looking for.
Yes. And
so in some way it's coming back to your core values that have always been there, but just been covered up like death by 1,000 pieces of Silicon Valley advice. Yes.
Oh God, story of my fucking career right there. Yes, 1,000 times so. It's hard to know what your non-negotiables are. Similar to when you're making your first record as an artist, there's a feeling that, at least for me, there's a feeling I need to know what I sound like before I make my first record. I need to figure out what is my sound. And if you talk to a lot of musicians, they'll talk about this when they're approaching their first record. What's my sound? I want to figure that out first. What I realized was you don't know what you sound like until you make the record. You can't figure out your sound first. Figuring out your sound comes from publishing a record and then another record and another record. For me, that's been my journey through Patreon. Figuring out what my voice is as an operator, figuring out my values has been from seeing these things play out, because Patreon is my first job. It's not like I worked somewhere for 10 years and learned those things at another company and then brought them to Patreon. I was literally on tour as a musician, playing shows, and then Patreon. And then I had to learn how to build a company. And so I didn't know how to build a company. And I had to make a couple records before I knew what my values on the inside of the company were. And that was a lot of experimentation and learning and failing. And yes, there are things that I thought I was comfortable bending on that I wasn't, and then things that were the other way around. But that was that's one of the hardest things has been balancing conventional wisdom with what's in my heart and staying true to that. And yeah, if I could go back and change anything, it'd be giving less fucks about everything else and just going with what I want. If I could go back and do one thing differently, it's that. Just do what I want, not what everybody else says or any of that, which is how I'm trying to operate now.
You wrote a blog post that also was very moving to me, and I'm terrified.
Oh wow, that's a deep cut.
Do you feel comfortable?
Sure.
It was I don't know how else to say it. It was very moving.
Thanks.
Why'd you write it?
I wrote it because I didn't know what to do.
When did you write it?
I wrote it right after I had, I was in the middle of making the music video that eventually launched Patreon. It was the video that sort of cracked me, if you will. I was making this robot music video. I built a replica of Millennium Falcon cockpit in my studio to film this video. I was like working 16 to 19 hour days by myself in the studio. My wife was out on tour, touring the world for like 6 months. So I was like home alone, and just kind of going nuts making this video. And again, there was no strategy or plan. It was like, I want to make a banger music video. I want to make the best thing I've ever made in my life. That was what I was trying to do. And I was just chipping away at it one day at a time. The set ended up being this massive undertaking. I didn't know it at the time going into it. I probably wouldn't have started it if I had known how crazy it was going to be, but ended up having to go to like Home Depot every day, swipe my credit card, spend $100, lumber, parts, miter saws, tools. I built a replica of the Millennium Falcon cockpit, like the full thing, all the buttons, I was like going insane, spending money, maxed out 2 credit cards, and ended up spending. I never added up the receipts. I was too scared to, but it was probably over 10 grand. Pretty much like drained a lot of my bank account, and then I wrote this. Yeah, there was a period toward the end of this where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to upload this video to YouTube. It's going to get 1 million views. My fans are going to go bonkers. And I'm going to get $48. And that reality really started to sink in at the end. And so I wrote this blog post because I was so desperate and scared that I was having one of those moments that I described earlier. It was like, I don't know if I have like a lot of reason right now. I don't know if I have like a lot of will. And I wrote this post, and yeah, the idea of the post was really around, when I look back on it, the way I would describe it now is about like abandoning logic for something that feels right. And that's another thing. Yeah, lessons hard learned. I think we weigh logic a lot, especially in tech. Like logic is very well respected, and like our favorite founders are super fucking logical and very rational, and that's great. That's like one way to do it, but I don't necessarily think it's the only way to do things. There are a lot of great like intuitive leaders, people, artists, builders. And in fact, a lot of things that are logical, if you only do things that are logical, you can rule out a lot of great things. In fact, I think like a lot of early stage investing is like that. Like early stage investing is like, well, this doesn't make any sense, but like that's why it's good to invest in that company. Like the number of VCs I pitched at the beginning of Patreon, oh my God, just like dozens and dozens and dozens of VCs who are like, I mean, it's cool, but like, how many creators are there? Like, come on, Jack. Like how are you thinking about the TAM here? And I was like, I don't know what TAM means. They're like, what's the margins of the business? Like, I don't know what margins are. Like, Patreon was not a logical idea. There's nothing logical about starting a company that takes 5%. It just doesn't make sense. I think the blog post was really about doing things that just feel right and just are things you want that that are worth it because it could be something cool.
Did you release the blog post before you released the music video?
I did, yeah.
In some ways, like, releasing the blog post is scarier than releasing the music video.
Yeah. I think I've always been one to just kind of like to spill my guts and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd rather just be honest.
And so you released that, then you released the music video.
Yeah.
And it went viral. Mm-hmm. Right? There was a song called Petals?
Yeah, song's called Petals.
It's the music videos, by the way, all the work that you put into it, it's awesome.
Thanks.
It's like so cool.
Thanks.
It's like it's like so trippy and cool.
Thank you.
I felt like I had to peer into your brain.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a great compliment. Thank you. That is what that's what it feels like. Yeah.
And so you release it, and it gets what, millions of views?
Yeah, I think now it has something like 2.5 or 3 million views.
Okay.
Did it go viral? I don't remember what viral meant.
Had Pomplamoose started yet?
Yes, Pomplamoose was 4 years old at that point.
And so had the band was what, you, your wife?
Me and my wife, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Had you guys started gaining popularity at that point?
Yeah.
And so this was a single that you released.
When I first heard bass music in 2010 and I heard Skrillex, I couldn't believe the sounds I was hearing. It was like, there are very rare moments in life where somebody makes a piece of art that is unlike anything. And I realized dubstep is standing on the shoulders of giants. There's a whole tradition of, dubstep music that came out of the UK before Skrillex, so I don't want to, undercredit those folks. But that whole genre, was like, when I first heard that, it was like, I must learn how to make this music. And so I went really deep for about 2 years, and I learned semi-modular synthesis, and I learned how to make bass music. And I made an EP of 4 songs, and the music video was one of the music videos for one of those 4 songs.
By the way, as an aside, did you go to the Skrillex and Fred Again show at City Center?
I didn't, but I did see Skrillex years ago at Fillmore, and it was, Warfield. It was the most insane show. Literally, there were moments where like my feet were not touching the ground for like 45 seconds. Like the crowd was just, I was like in the air. It was unbelievable. It was one of the best shows of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then you go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then the music video comes out.
Yep.
People are going nuts for it. People going nuts for it?
Totally nuts. Thousands of comments.
Like all the work that you put in.
Oh, everybody saw it.
Was like starting to be validated.
People couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. No production company, no record label, no studio. And it involved a 3D printed hexapod robot that was built and designed by this fellow from the University of Arizona named Matt Bunting. It involved a animatronic head that was singing the lyrics to the song. I found this guy in the UK who was a roboticist hobbyist, and I worked with him for months to figure out how to program the face to sing the lyrics of the song. It's just this creepy looking exoskeleton with some flesh on its cheeks and lips, and it's so weird looking and incredible looking, and these robots come out of these rotating elevators, and I'm in the middle jamming out an electric guitar. It is an insane video. I made the whole thing by myself over 3 months, in my studio. And then, we shot it in 3 days, and I flew my buddy in from Colorado. He's a filmmaker, and he shot it. Jeff Orlowski, amazing filmmaker. He directed a film called Chasing Ice, and he actually directed The Social Dilemma, which got really big on Netflix a couple of years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, he shot that video.
Wow.
Yeah. Good friend of mine from college. So yeah, like that was like, I had no business making a music video like that. I mean, I sound like I'm really scratching my own back here, but it was wild.
It was wild.
Yeah.
It is wild.
Yeah.
It stands the test of time as wild.
It's crazy. It is not a logical thing to make.
And how long from that point to I got to go start Patreon? How much time elapsed?
Okay, so the way it actually worked was at the end of this process, when I wrote that blog post, I was like,
I know I'm not going to make any money.
This isn't going to, like, I'll get nothing back from this. Which I deliberately chose to accept going into the music video.
Yep.
Right? It was a deliberate choice. I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to make money. I'm going to lose a lot of money. Okay, I'm going to go make it. Like, it was like, I know that's and it wasn't like, oh, maybe that'll happen. It was like, this is going to happen. So I accepted that, and then I made the music video. And at the end of the process, when the bill came due, I was like realizing that. And I was like, I felt like, A, this sucks and I feel terrible. And B, I can't be the only person who's feeling like this. Like, at the time I was following hundreds of creators on YouTube. I'm a YouTube junkie. Like, I love the people who are making things on the internet. And I was like, I bet they're staring at a dashboard too and figuring out why millions of views is converting to $180 of ad revenue. I bet they're trying to figure that out. And I bet they're feeling worthless like I am. And I bet they want a system of compensation that better reflects the value that they're creating for the world. And so I sketched out, basically it started with like a website I wanted for myself, which was like this, pay me $5 a month for for me to go make stuff. And then, very quickly it became like, okay, other people are going to want this too. And then I sat down at my kitchen table one Sunday afternoon. I sketched out the whole website on 14 pieces of printer paper with a pencil in about 3 hours. And I called up my freshman year roommate in college, who's an engineer. And I sent him the drawings and I said, let's build this. And he got really excited about it, like really excited. This is before the video came out, before the music video came out. So it's like I hadn't even finished the project yet. Like, I just was like, now I want to do this. And Sam got pumped. He started building it the night he saw the drawings. And then I finished the video, edited the video, and finished the song while he was building Patreon.com. And then to launch Patreon.com, I put a vlog at the end of the music video. So if you watch the video, the robot thing, it finishes, and then the camera comes up, and I'm sitting in the studio, and I tell everybody, hey, I'm trying this new thing called Patreon. I made it with my buddy Sam. Here's Sam. We made Patreon together, and we think it can help a lot of creative people. So like, go follow me over there and go become a patron of my work. And then uploaded that whole video to YouTube. And because like I had a base of people that I was reaching on YouTube, a lot of them had been seeing my videos for, I guess 6 years at that point. And they went and became patrons on Patreon, and that was that.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. I'm so grateful that there are people like you doing this work. I'm so grateful. It's so cool. And it's even more cool that you're willing to just like be so unvarnished about your experiences. And you're not doing it. You're not doing it now that you're running a big company. You've been doing it since you wrote this blog, probably doing it before that. And I just really appreciate you doing that.
Thanks.
It's really cool. And these are the types of things when I read them or when I watch these types of talks, these are the things that really resonate to my core. And the types of things that I just don't think it talked about enough. So I just really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing these conversations. I love the show, and I appreciate you kind of making me feel comfortable to sort of open up.
I appreciate it. Are you hiring? Like those traits that you talked about?
Yeah.
If you're one of those people.
Oh yeah. We've got a lot of open searches right now. And we're hiring across the company. We're also, I'm looking for a CPO as well. So, always hiring, and for folks that are out there and listening to this, and, if you love artists and if you're obsessed and you want a place to work where people care about their craft, getting better at their craft, people care about focusing on doing great things and making great stuff and having it lead to an awesome impact in the world. Man, I know I'm a little biased, but I can't think of a better place to do that.
Jack, thank you.
Thanks for having me.